Hello, my name is Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in September. So before I get into the video, I do just want to say a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online subscription service for readers, and how it works is that each month their team vets hundreds of books and provides you with a carefully curated selection of new and early release fiction titles so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. So Book of the Month, they offer you from 5 to 7 options each month to choose from, and you can pick whichever genre, whichever author you want to try for that particular month. I love the customizable aspect of it, and you can also select add-ons if you so choose. And I also love the fact that it is risk-free, so you can skip any month at any time and you will not be charged if for whatever reason the options that they have for you in a given month don't stick out to you. I also wanted to say that they do now ship to Canada, so any of my Canadian subscribers who have ever been interested in Book of the Month but they weren't operating in your country, they finally are now. So if you want to check them out, you can use the link in my description and use the code MINAREADS so you can get your first box for $9.99. So Book of the Month is really awesome. They always have a very wide array of genres and authors to choose from, but I ended up picking these two for my October box. And so I got As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zofokoto, and I got Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. So this book is a story about the Syrian Civil War, about this character Salima, and she is a pharmacy student, and she and her family are, caught up in the Civil War, and she is trying and struggling to find a way to get her and her sister-in-law out of the country because her sister-in-law is about to give birth. And so it's a very fraught and emotional story, and I've heard nothing but good things from the early reviews of this, so I can't wait to dive into it. And then we have Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, which is a historical fantasy, and this is set in 1930s Shanghai, following a character named Rosalind who was brought back from the brink of death by this secret experiment, and the experiment has left her ageless and unable to die. So she uses her newfound powers to be a spy and an assassin for her home country. Thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. Do be sure to check them out in the link in my description below, and you can use the code MINAREADS to get your first box for $9.99. Now, I know that there is the smoke detector beeping in the background. I know, I understand, it is annoying. I, however, am too short to reach the smoke detector, and we don't have any step stools so that I can change the batteries right now. So bear with me. And so before we get into the reviews, I thought it might be fun to look at the stats, so I'm going to show you some of my stats from Storygraph. So like I said, we read 10 books this month. We read 3,132 pages. Of the moods that I read, the largest mood was dark, which is interesting. So we have dark, we have mysterious, adventurous, and tense as my biggest groups. Then we have some lighthearted books and some emotional ones. 10% slow-paced books, 20% fast-paced books, 70% medium. In terms of pages, 40% of the books that I read were less than 300 pages, 10% were 500 pages, and then the other 50% was between 300 and 500 pages, so interesting. I read all fiction this month. My top genres were thriller, romance, and fantasy. And my average rating for the month was 3.23 stars. So not great, but not too bad. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the books now. So up first we have King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. So this is a vampire fantasy romance about these two characters, Adrian and Isolde. Isolde is the princess of this country that is about to be overtaken by this vampire lord named Adrian, and Adrian says that he will enter kind of like this diplomatic alliance and peace agreement with Isolde's country or kingdom if he gets the right to her hand in marriage. And so this is a political arranged marriage, enemies to lovers type deal, and so they end up getting married. She doesn't like him because, vampires are gross, icky monsters, and also he's a warlord, so I mean, very reasonable that she doesn't like him. And so they have beef, but they also have immediate sexual tension, and they get, down and dirty pretty quickly with each other, but it takes them a much longer time to build trust and intimacy in their relationship. There's some political stuff going on as she integrates herself into his court and all that good stuff. Now, I'm gonna say that I gave this book about 2 stars, maybe like a 2.5 star. I just really was not impressed with it. I think the first 100 pages or so held a lot of promise for me. Like I said, I do think that Adrian and Isolde, they had like a lot of sexual tension, and I feel like their sexual tension was interesting and kind of fun, and there's lots of steam, especially in that initial portion of the book, and so I thought that stuff was like cool and interesting and kind of fun, but I feel that I never fully connected with either of the characters. I feel like Adrian, he was definitely not very well fleshed out in my opinion, and when I read romances, I definitely do prefer to be able to get both people, or all the people, however many people are in the relationship. I like to get everyone's perspective. And so the fact that this was a single POV was also not my favorite. And so I just felt like Adrian, I didn't know enough about him to care about him to any particular degree, but he was hot. I mean, I love a good long-haired blonde vampire. It is my guilty pleasure. So like, he was cool, but I never felt too attached to him. And Isolde, like, she was also cool, but she was also kind of a one-note girl boss protagonist, and she didn't do a whole lot for me. So yeah, and I just felt like the world building in this wasn't as fleshed out as I would have wanted it to be, especially because the story is very like politically driven, and there is kind of a war going on and all this other stuff. And I just feel like the way that the world building was expressed, the way that the political alliances and all that kind of stuff was talked about, it just wasn't enough for me. I wasn't satisfied with it, and it definitely wasn't enough to make me want to continue this series. So like, yeah, 2.5 stars. It wasn't bad necessarily. It wasn't like horrendous, and I understand why a lot of people might get a lot of enjoyment out of it, but it just was like really fell flat for me, unfortunately. Then I read The Dare by Harley LaRoe, and this is a short, smutty Halloween party novella. It's basically about this character named Manson and this girl named Jessica. And so Jessica, she was once the popular head cheerleader, prom queen type in high school, and she used to have this kind of antagonistic flirtation with this guy named Manson, who was sort of like a loser in their school. He was the social outcast, and so she kind of bullied him, but at the same time they used to kind of flirt with each other, and they had this one like kiss when they were in high school, but there's lots of tension, lots of history, lots of silly backstory that they have together. And one day they end up seeing each other at a college party, and they're playing beer pong. They get into this bet, and she loses the bet, so her punishment is that she has to like be his slave for the evening, which is all, you know, very cheesy, very ridiculous, but fun. And so this is just a smutty novella about that party and the stuff that goes on, and it does get pretty wild, and I enjoyed it. I didn't absolutely love it. I think that it's one of those things, because it is just straight up like, you know, spicy times. I think that if you're not a huge fan of the kinks and stuff that the characters are into, then it might not really work for you. And so I feel like the first half of the book featured a lot of kinks that do nothing for me, and then the second half of the book was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So I enjoyed it. It was a cool little novella, and it definitely encouraged me to want to read the follow-up to that, which is Losers. So I will be reading Losers whenever that comes out. But yeah, like, it was cool, it was fine. I think I gave it a 3-star. Then I read The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. This book is a royal romance about this girl named Cherry who works at a school, and while she's at the school, she ends up meeting this guy named Ruben, who she thinks is just a rich guy who's going to be a new benefactor for the school, and donate some money to their tuition programs at the private institution she works at. But lo and behold, he's actually a prince, and so one day they are out on a date with each other, and they get caught by the paparazzi. The paparazzi take their picture and, you know, sell it to the tabloids, and so Cherry's face is kind of plastered everywhere. It causes this huge scandal, and so Ruben figures that the best way to handle this issue is going to be for him and Cherry to pretend that they are fiancés, to kind of mitigate the scandalous nature of them being caught kissing by the paparazzi. And I thought that this was cute. I definitely think that Talia Hibbert is a good writer. She has very good, I think she writes really fun, snappy, funny dialogue, and so I think that that's one of her like strong suits as a writer, and that was definitely present here. I really liked the chemistry between Cherry and Ruben, but I have to say that I wasn't a huge fan of like the development over the course of the story. I felt like for me there was a little bit something missing in between them like liking each other and maybe being sexually interested in each other, and then them being like in love. I feel like there was something missing there for me in terms of development, but it was cute and it was fun. I would say don't listen to the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook, and I think the audiobook kind of mitigated some of my enjoyment, simply because the narrator is, you know, he's good at his job, but perhaps a little bit too good. And one of the things about this book is that it is very sexually charged, and there's a lot of steamy scenes, right? And so the way that the narrator chooses to read those scenes is like so strange. He does a lot of like, oh my god, I'm coming. Like, he sounds ridiculous when he's doing the stuff, and so it really made it hard for me to like buy into this sexiness factor of anything that was going on. And I feel like Talia uses their intimate interactions with each other as the the building blocks of their emotional relationship, but because I couldn't buy into those things because of how ridiculous the narrator's voice was, I just was unable to like fully appreciate their relationship, I guess, because a lot of the foundations of the relationship was built on the steamy scenes, which were not that steamy and were actually a bit comical to me because of the narrator's voice. So it just was like, you know, so I can't say that the issues that I have with it are maybe fully the book's fault. I think it may partially be the medium that I read the book in, but it was still cute, still fun. If you're looking for a royalty romance, I think you could definitely check this one out. It also has bisexual rep. Ruben is bisexual, and plus size rep because Cherry is a plus size black woman. So yeah, like it's cool, it's fun, it's cute, but I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. This was a cool entry in her catalog, but not my favorite. Alright, so after The Princess Trap, I did read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This was a book that has been on my radar for a very long time, and I think this is an exceptionally well-written romance. I really ended up loving it. Quite unexpectedly, because the last few Christina Lauren books that I read were a bit iffy for me, but this one was really good. So Love in Other Words is about these two characters, Macy and Elliot, and they are childhood best friends, and basically some circumstances happened that ended their friendship quite abruptly, and they have not spoken to each other in almost a decade. And so the story opens up with them meeting once again at a coffee shop. How them being reintroduced into each other's lives kind of upends a lot of things for them emotionally, and they end up trying to re-explore and reconnect their friendship and maybe their romantic relationship. This is a really good friends to lovers romance because we get to see their friendship building in their childhood, and we get to see what really makes them so connected, what makes them so compatible, why they were really good friends, and why as friends you could feel those hints of like romantic tension, but the romance, the inherent romance of their dynamic did not like undermine the friendship and the platonic love that they also seem to have for each other, which I really liked. I think that that's a difficult balance that a lot of friends to lovers romances don't usually get right. I feel like a lot of friends to lovers romances don't know how to write the friendship in a way that feels real, or they don't know how to write that transition from being friends and being platonically in love to being romantically in love, and I think that this book does a very good job of that. I thought her and Elliot were really good together, particularly in the flashback portions of the narrative, because we do get lots of flashbacks, and then those are alternated with present chapters of them after they meet again at this coffee shop. And so I did, like I said, love this book, but I did end up giving it 4 stars rather than 5 because I did feel that once they reconnected as adults, while I did still believe that they were very much in love, just based on the strength of those past chapters, I did feel like there was, I don't know, there just wasn't enough of them together in the present to convince me fully of the viability of their adult relationship. I definitely believe that they're in love. I definitely believe that they work together, that they're compatible, etc. But I wanted to see more of them together as adults. I think that that would have made me happy, but their adult dynamic is interesting and valid, but I don't feel like there was enough time with them as adults working through their adult relationship. I wanted to see more of it, and I feel like some stuff happens. There's kind of like a grand reveal sort of, and I think that the book kind of rushes to a conclusion after things finally start settling into place, which I didn't love. I felt like I wanted a slightly more drawn out resolution, and I wanted some more time with these characters, which I don't know, I liked it a lot, but like I said, wanted more of them as adults. So then I read Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and this was a buddy read with my friend from Instagram, Pam. So thank you, Pam, for reading this with me. It was actually really fun. We did the buddy read on Storygraph, and I don't know if you guys use Storygraph or not. I might just be like very late to the party. If anyone is looking for like a buddy reading software that isn't just a group chat, I would definitely recommend checking out Storygraph. It's pretty cool. So Velvet Was the Night is a historical noir suspense novel about these two characters, Maite and Elvis. And so Elvis, he is a part of this guerrilla warfare group called the, I want to say they're called the Hawks. Elvis is a part of this guerrilla warfare group who are interested in kind of suppressing political activism in Mexico City in the 70s, and so his group is called the Hawks. He's kind of a captain of this squad that is trying to suppress like student activism, but he's a very, I want to say he's a eccentric criminal, and he's not necessarily like evil. He's sort of just working a job, trying to make a living, but he is, you know, sort of on the wrong side of history, so to say. So in Mayete's own words, she's living a very boring life. She's very dissatisfied with the state of things, and she ends up kind of assuaging her boredom by involving herself in some other people's business. And so she is cat sitting for one of her neighbors. The neighbor goes missing, and she decides to involve herself in the investigation of where this girl has gone and what has happened to her. And in so doing, Mayete gets caught up in this student revolution thing that is going on, and this is a dual POV, so we get Elvis's POV, we get Mayete's POV, and it's really interesting, beautifully written as always with Silvia Moreno Garcia. I really loved it, and I think that it was perfect for me because I don't have the best attention span when it comes to kind of a mystery or a suspense type of story, but I think that the two characters were interesting enough that they really compelled me through the story, more so than the mystery itself. So I really was fascinated by these two characters and their points of view, and I love the writing style. I really love the setting. It is historical and is based on real history, something called the Dirty War in Mexican history, and I definitely want to do more background research on it. There is some, I don't want to say references necessarily, but in kind of the acknowledgements it talks about this war, and so it's like a really good primer for researching it on your own if you want to look up any of this stuff. And it also comes with a playlist, which I love. I love a good playlist for a book, and so I always appreciate when an author includes their own playlist for the book, and so I don't have to make it myself. So that was cool. I really like this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I definitely can't wait to read more by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So let me know which one of her books you think I should read next. And yeah, it was a good time. Sticking with the kind of suspense thriller trend, I ended up picking up The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This was on my fall TBR, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab it. The audiobook was available from my library, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to it. It'll be a good fun read. And I have to say, it really wasn't. It was so dull. I did not like this. The Golden Couple is about this couple named Marissa and Matthew, and they end up going to couples counseling because Marissa has cheated, and so they end up going to this therapist named Avery, who has recently lost her therapist license because of some unethical practices, but Avery essentially advertises that she can fix anybody's relationship in 10 sessions, and so she sets about fixing Marissa and Matthew's relationship in these 10 sessions. But I have to say that I really did not like this book. I thought it was so utterly dull. I think that I made some generalizations about this book and about thrillers in general in a vlog that I posted recently, where I basically say that like thrillers are so boring. To me personally, like I just find them all to be really boring. I don't find the characters to be compelling, and I don't love the storytelling structure of thrillers, which usually involves a lot of like evasiveness, and you know, it's just like there's all these questions you're supposed to be asking, questions you're supposed to be interested in, and then you finally get to the big reveal at the end, and maybe it's a good reveal, but maybe it's not. And I just felt like the reveal at the end of this book was not interesting, but even the characters and their exploration of their psyche and what they have going on in the interim was also very boring. Marissa and Matthew, they were not compelling characters. Avery, she was not a compelling character at all, and I think that she should have been a compelling character because she's kind of this eccentric therapist, and like she's very strange. Like she's a stalker and very odd and, you know, weird, and she even had this side storyline going on where she was being like hunted down by Big Pharma or something, but she still ended up being so utterly boring. And so I definitely think that I will not be reading anything more from this author duo, because I did read An Anonymous Girl by them before, and Anonymous Girl was cool. I think I liked that one more than I liked this one, but it wasn't anything special either. So I definitely think that I can, you know, put this author duo to rest. But yeah, this one just wasn't for me. So then I read The Company of Fiends by Catherine Moon, and this is a sequel to A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. And this book is a monster romance, a polyamorous monster romance. It's about this girl named Hazel, and Hazel works at this theater called The Company of Fiends. And this theater caters to monsters and shows, basically in this world, one of the main tenets of the world building is that monsters have like a fetish for humans. Like they really like humans, and they think that humans are like super hot and desirable. So this particular theater caters to that monster human fetish, and so Hazel is one of these actresses at the theater, and basically this is a story about her finding a number of monsters that she really likes and falling into a relationship with all of them, while also being a slight murder mystery because some of the girls at the theater are going missing. And so the story is juggling, you know, Hazel and all of her suitors, as well as trying to figure out what has happened to some of her coworkers. And yeah, I thought that it was really entertaining. It was a little bit longer maybe than need be. It's like 500 pages, maybe almost over 500 pages, and it felt a little bit long and drawn out. And I definitely think that this was because, you know, there's a plot, and I can't hate the book for having a plot, but I was not there for the plot. I was there for the monster good times, and the monster good times were fun. I will say that one of her boyfriends, his name is Constantine, and I didn't love him, but the other boyfriends were really cool. My favorite was this one named Ronan. Hazel has very good taste. Hazel was also a really interesting character. I think if you read A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor and you were maybe slightly put off by the fact that Esther maybe is a little bit lacking in character depth, although she was a very lovable protagonist to me, I did think that Esther was lacking a little bit in depth, and I think that Hazel has that depth, and so she was a really interesting protagonist to follow. So like, yeah, it was cool, it was fun, it was sexy, it was a little spooky, and I enjoyed it, so I gave it 4 stars. And yeah, so to round out my reading this month, I did end up reading some manga. So I read 2 volumes of a manga called Happiness. This manga series is basically about this character Ozaki. No, his name is something else, but I'm forgetting what his name is. But it's basically about this high school student, and one day while he is coming home from school or something like that, he ends up getting bitten by a vampire. And so this is about his vampiric transformation, and also just like a regular coming of age story where he's kind of getting bullied and he doesn't really fit in at school. After he gets turned into a vampire, he does start to be invited into like the in crowd at school, and so it's navigating all those kind of things: puberty, high school, first crushes, and also being a vampire and like the dangers therein. I can't say that I love this. I think I gave both volumes 3 stars. They were kind of interesting. I think what I liked the most about them was the art style, but I didn't like the main character that much. I didn't dislike him. There's nothing wrong with him, but I didn't like him enough that I feel like I want to continue reading the series about him and his life and his circumstances. I don't know if I necessarily cared. So yeah, I won't be reading any more of that, but if you are looking for a vampire manga series, you could check this out. And I think all of the volumes are available on Kindle Unlimited. I know at least the first 5 volumes are available on Kindle Unlimited, so you could check that out if you're looking for some manga to read. And yeah, so it was fine. I read both of those. I gave them 3 stars. They were cool. And the last thing that I read in September was Moriarty the Patriot, and this is a adaptation of the Sherlock Holmes series, but it's from the point of view of Moriarty, the villain. And so Moriarty, he basically is all about eating the rich. He's just, you know, he wants to get them out of there. He deeply hates the aristocracy. He has been adopted into an aristocratic family, but he is trying to use his money and wealth and power and connections to topple the aristocracy from the inside out. And so he frequently takes on these cases. He calls himself a consultant, and he, you know, deals harsh punishment to the wealthy and the landed, moneyed people in the society who are using their wealth to kind of subjugate other people. And so yeah, this is about, you know, him as this sort of anti-hero figure, as him, his brothers, and some of his friends kind of champion the poor and eat the rich. It was good. It was cool. I liked it. And that was my reading month. So I don't regret anything that I read this month. I'm happy that I made a little bit of progress in my physical TBR, because I read 5 books that are on my physical TBR. This is only 4, but I do own a physical copy of Moriarty the Patriot. I just don't know where it is. It's somewhere in my house, but it's sort of disappeared into the ether. So 5 books for my physical TBR, and yeah. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can also maybe share it with your friends, possibly, because the YouTube algorithm and me are not really friends. So if you want to support my channel in any way, it would be cool if you could share my videos. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will hopefully see you in my next one. Bye, you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. And a special thank you to all of my wonderful, wonderful patrons. Mwah.